Listen and subscribe to The Table of Truth on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, and Google Podcasts. Welcome, everybody, to The Table of Truth. This is your man, Cam. With me, as always, is...
New year, new do, Cam 2.
As well as...
the Chobani yogurt eating massacre, master of deception and destruction, known as Josh.
I gotta give it to you, Josh. You stepped up the moniker game this 2021.
I had time to think about it.
Yeah, I was laughing. Someone's like, "Okay, how come we never do monikers?" I'm like, "Oh, I intro just so I don't have to."
Boo! Now you have to do one. See, you messed it up.
Yeah, guys, Happy New Year's, dude.
Yay!
You see how he sidestepped the moniker thing?
Yeah.
You see, as you guys can tell, I am a master of my craft, and it's called segues.
We did notice that. Yes.
Is it a new year or is it still a continuation of 2020?
Hey, no.
You know what? I'm going to actually say it is a new year because my birthday just passed last week. So that, for me, that signifies the turning of the year, whatever's going on. So yes, I'm going to say it's a new year.
Okay, so you tweeted something and said welcoming middle age. I was like, you just got to 41, Cam. Like,
well, so I said this, right? Because I looked it up. So the American average age, our lifespan, is actually 78.9 or something like that. So technically, we're middle aged. And then I looked at black men. That's even worse. We're like 76 or 75.
Yeah, I refuse. I refuse to believe that.
That's why I was like, I'm going to round up. And I'm like, okay, now it's around middle age. But yeah, I had to look that up because I was saying that at first. And I was like, wait, what actually is middle age? And yeah, the life expectancy of an American is like 78.9 or something like that. And then supposedly black man is like a couple years before that, like 74 or something like that, or 75 or some shit.
Well, I'm going to denounce my nationality to live longer.
Trying to live to 100.
Basically, that's the goal. That's the old standard.
No, it was good, man. I mean, literally, I woke up, took a walk, did like 3.5 miles, did some stretching, got some coffee, just kind of chilled out. It was good. It was just like a good chill birthday. And then the next day, me and my girl went to Temecula Wine Country, picked up some of our bottles from the wine club and then some cheese. And then one of the wine clubs just has like an outdoor setting. So they said you can just come out, your social distancing, like most of the wineries are closed. You can't really do much, but they'll allow you just to like uncork and just chill. So yeah, it was a nice day. Just kind of hung out. So it was good.
How was your New Year's, Josh?
It was quiet. I chilled at home. Didn't really do much. Watched TV. Yeah, that was it. I think I just watched television. Cooked a little bit. Kept it quiet. What about you?
Did you guys actually watch the countdown? Like an actual countdown, quote unquote?
Yes, but mine is like way behind because I stream on my television. So like 12:04.
Bringing in the new year at like 12:15.
Basically.
I ordered Chinese food earlier in the day and went to bed at 8:30 and didn't wake up till the next day.
Nice.
So if the world would have ended, I would have slept through it. So
always good.
This is the first New Year's probably in a long while that I don't remember the countdown or care to stay up for the countdown because of just the year we just had last year and just a little bit older and different responsibility, and I needed to catch up on sleep for obvious reasons. But the thing is just this is the year I just didn't care. I was like, look, if something's going to happen to the world, I don't have to pay my loans back. If not, I'm glad I'm still living to enjoy another revolution around the sun and whatnot. But I just had no interest in the countdown. I felt like there should have just been a digital, hey, we're live from the studio about the countdown, fake audience, like we have a fake audience in sports, but I hear people were gathering for the countdown. I'm like, why? Like, there's no.
Yep, pretty much, dude. I mean, I think it was funny because what was it? Yeah, some of them I didn't watch any of the live stuff. I just saw clips, but then it was just weird because some of the anchors would just be in the office and they're just like talking to each other or like Zoom calling in random people to talk. So it wasn't really like a thing. It did remind me kind of 99 to 2000 when everyone was kind of like on edge a little bit about the new year.
Yeah,
Like I don't know what's gonna happen.
For no reason. The crazy thing is too, like I say this every year. After day 5, we don't say Happy New Year, and the only reason we're saying Happy New Year is because this is the first time the crew has got together since the beginning of the new year. But if I see somebody in person, and they tell me Happy New Year on January, what's today? I don't even know what day it is. January 15th. We're past Happy New Year. It's just, hey, good morning. Hello, how you doing? You don't have to give me the Happy New Year. Hey, I'm a grumpy old man, so be it. But like 5 days, we have that buffer to say Happy New Year. After that, cut the bullshit. Like just greet me in one point.
People are just trying to be. They're just trying to be nice. Have some positivity.
What I mean? It's a salutation.
Tell me salutation. Don't tell me Happy New Year. Ain't nothing new about the year anymore. It's day 15.
Seriously.
We're 15 days into the new year. It's old now. Especially after what we experienced in 2020, we were getting hit with something new a mile a minute. So
that hasn't exactly stopped.
Exactly. What's crazy is like even with we're talking about sports because sports are starting to come back in. Like basketball was coming, football was still rolling, but like I don't even remember it. Like it felt like 2 seconds between the last NBA season and the new one because I don't even feel like there was a break. Like since everything just keeps rolling, I don't even know where like seasons are anymore. I don't have like when things are stopping. Like and then I live in Southern California now, so we don't really have like a real traditional like winter anymore. So it's like it's like everything kind of just melds together.
I mean, I think that's everybody everywhere. It's just and it doesn't matter. Like the season's changing. That hasn't okay. So I'm in New York. The season's changed. I can't tell you. I have to think really hard about what day of the week it is. But the only reason I know it's January is because it just happened and it's New Year's. Other than that, time is just is just a fluid concept at this point.
Time is a flat circle.
Basically. Somebody be like, what day it is? I'm like, huh? It is day? December 38th.
It's December 65th.
Yeah. Oh, man. Time is a lost concept. But yeah, we're here. Table of Truth is back for another season. We did very well last year, episode a month, or maybe 2 episodes per month. We were
I think we
very consistent. Give ourselves a round of applause.
Yeah, man, we did like 15, I think we did like 15 episodes. I think last year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, stepped up.
We beat the year. We beat the year.
If there is a New Year's resolution for the Table of Truth, is to bring more content to the masses who still follow us and stay true to us.
True that. Thank you for following us.
Yes, exactly.
So we appreciate
round of applause to the guests. Round of applause to the audience that still follows us. We'll still keep the once a month main show, but we're gonna have some new stuff coming up pretty soon. In the works. Still got a gaming pod. Still got a couple like small interviews with some dope folks here and there. But stay tuned. Sports pod.
Yeah, and then also too, like I said, we're trying to branch out. Maybe we'll try to do a live show sometime in the future, so folks can be kind of hop on, ask us questions live, and whether we do it on Facebook or Twitch or something like that. I think that's something that's going to come out in the future, which I think will be fun.
See the face that was made for radio.
Yeah, that'll be the fun. I mean, that and like like you said, a little bit more, some more topic heavy. Like one topic type of pods, like we're like either reviewing like shows or we still had to do a show about just like what we binged. We could probably do one just what we binged in 2020. That's a lot.
Yeah.
Oh God. Yeah. That's easily a 90-minute show.
Yeah. So, but definitely want to do. So like, we'll, no matter what, we'll do it once a month, but then in between we'll try to drop in some more like, very specific type stuff. And I think that'll be fun.
But in the meantime,
Well,
That was your
in the
segue, Cam.
meantime,
Go.
we had an interesting party of sorts.
Yeah,
What?
so
Pray tell, what do you mean, Cameron?
Apparently, well, we had the white version of Nat Turner's Revenge, the the U.S. allies storming the beaches of Normandy, aka
True.
the Capitol Tea Party that happened a few days ago.
about to call it a Snapple tea party. This shit was
Yeah,
fucking ridiculous.
let's do it. We're gonna call it from now on. It's the
Yo,
Snapple
I'm
Tea
very
Party.
okay with that.
Yo.
I'm very okay with that.
Yes.
What's funny is so I actually watched Trump's speech prior to all this craziness. Like I was cleaning like the apartment, so I was like, oh, I never really pay attention to this dude who's on his way out. So I just pressed it, let it run in the background. So as he's saying his dumb shit that he normally says, he gets to that part where he was kind of like, yo, we're going to march down to the Capitol. I'm like, where is this dude marching? This dude don't walk more than fucking 20 feet. Like he can't go in no Capitol. And I just didn't pay attention to that. And then after I, doing my thing, I think I was playing I was playing Division 2, which is in DC after a catastrophe where you have to fight people in the Capitol building. And I turned on the TV on the live stream and these dudes are marching and like trying to break into the Capitol.
I guess if we're going to say where we were at when the white people wanted a revolution, I was sitting, I was at work actually, and I could hear it in the background, but I paid not too much attention to it. And then I went and got lunch, started eating my burrito, and I basically saw what quote unquote an insurrection of the Capitol of the government, of a band of rogues gallery of people, and I laughed that whole day because obviously I wasn't even mad because we understand what the game is. We understand what this really is. And, you could compare what happened to Black Lives Matter and all these other protests opposed to this protest of approaching the Capitol and how vastly different it was. And it was high key comedy to me to see white people, or I would say clan versus clan, or white lives versus or all lives versus blue lives, go back and forth and knock each other's head off. And unfortunately, a few people lost their lives over this. And to be honest, I felt no remorse because, like I said, you play dumb games, you get stupid prizes. Like, what do you think is going to happen when you storm a government building and you get in front of people with guns that are trying to protect a government building, not just any building, the Capitol, and actually fight them? Like, what happens? It's funny to see all lives matter fight blue lives, and blue lives is the people that were trying to protect all lives, and they're going. I sat there and just ate my burrito and smirked the whole day.
Yeah. I mean, that was to me the most interesting. Because they're showing the different shots and stuff like that, and it looked like a pretty big, like, quote unquote rally at first, and then then there's a break off that people started to go into the Capitol. But when they started to go to the Capitol, I started laughing, but I'm like, yo, these white people really about to storm the castle? Like, to do what? Like, what's the whole point? Like, I was more confused than anything else. And then when they started to actually like get in, and then on Twitter, you could see people were starting to like repost folks' videos. And I was like, wait, you guys are storming the castle and then filming yourself doing it at the same time? I was like, if that's not the peak whiteness.
You know what that is, Cam? People mistake that for white privilege. It's actually white power.
Sure.
It's actually white power.
100%. There's a great clip of one of the cats, and then the person was interviewing. He's like, yo, man, what'd you just do? He's like, oh, we just stormed the Capitol. He's like, so what are you doing now? He's like, oh, Trump told us to go home, so because we won, so I'm about to go home now. And he was like, don't you feel like you might get, arrested or something like that? He's like, nah, man, this is what we're doing. This is the whole point we're here for. And it was comedy because the assuredness in his voice and how right he was, that like they're like doing something without any consequence, was just, like you said, kind of like the white power aspect of it, because the majority of these cats were literally doing all this dumb shit. They smeared shit in the wall. They fucking, messed up paintings, went to people's offices. And this is just the beginning for it. We can get into later stuff. But like, and then after it was quote unquote over, they all just was like, all right, guys, let's go home. Walked down the stairs, went back to the Holiday Inn, trying to get on their flights to go back home, like it was fucking Coachella or some shit like that. Like with no, like literally had nothing. Like there was no in their minds. They didn't even have a sense of like, oh, this maybe is a bad thing or breaking the law. Like it was nuts to me. It was nuts on one end, but at the other part, you're not surprised. So it was like this weird, just kind of like I don't know. I think when I saw one of the BBC reporters reporting on it with the British accent at like the chaos, I was like, oh shit, this is what it feels like when like the British is like, in Asia or Africa in an insurrection or some shit. And then and, like they're reporting from it live or some craziness.
I mean, I was I was working on something, typing the crap out of something, probably sending emails or whatever. And a friend of mine hit me and she was like, yo, someone, so she just, bad turn of phrase, but she said someone just broke into the Capitol building. I was like, I got stuff to do. Clack, 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 clack. And I just kept writing, less, ignoring her, but more just like, these are just silly people being silly. And somewhere in the text conversation, she was like, yeah, they. And I was like, you said a person stormed the Capitol building. Is it a person or multiple people? She was like, you need to turn on your TV right now. And I was like, all right, fine. I click on the TV and it's, this horde of people on some World War Z wave of people, storming the Capitol building. And not only storming the Capitol building is one thing, okay, you're fine. Because initially when I turned it on, they were just on the steps of the Capitol building. So I was like, whatever. I turned away, kept doing whatever. And then I turned back and they're inside. I'm looking at cameras inside the Capitol building with this horde of people that are just, willing themselves into the Capitol building. And I was just like, it was a series of things that sort of crossed my mind. I too, like Cam, eventually landed on the smirk. Because I was like, this is, to quote the honorable Malcolm X, this is the chickens coming home to roost. You know what I mean? Like they've been fomenting this all this time. And so, I was telling my mom, it's not surprising because they've been ginning this up all this time. So of course this was the inevitable outcome, but it was still shocking to visually see it happening and to acknowledge it as reality that it was actually happening. And just, I mean, as we say, it is the height of white power and white privilege that BLM, to reiterate what Cam was just saying, it is the height of hypocrisy and white power and white privilege to have Black Lives Matter protesters peacefully with cameras on them protesting right alongside the White House or blocks away from the White House. I can't even remember where it was. And to have them cleared out so this ass clown can go have a photo op, not even holding the Bible correctly, for something that wasn't on his schedule. His schedule is public, just so everybody knows. His schedule is public. You can see what the president is doing on a daily basis. You know what I mean? And so to have him go out there for this photo op that even one of the military guys who was with him was like, this is terrible. I regret my role in it. I don't even I feel disgusting just having been there. You know what I mean? Like, you can't tell me that this was not going to be the outcome with all the ginning up that he's been doing, with all the with all that he's been fomenting. And I think he just has this disconnect from reality. I don't think he really planned for or knew that these people were going to do it, but I'm sure he enjoyed it based on all the, and not just my personal opinion. Like, there are multiple inside reports that were like, oh, he just stood there in his glory watching this whole thing as it unfolded. But I think there's this cognitive dissonance that happens with this guy where he doesn't really fully get the full measure or doesn't care about the full measure of things like this when they happen. Very similar to how when he says all kinds of wild shit, it just doesn't register for him that this is A, bad, B, not something you should be doing. And more importantly, more than any of those things, see the ramifications and the ripple effect that these things can have. He's the height of ignorant, irresponsible. It's just mind blowing.
You know what's mind blowing? Not to cut you off, Cam. Sorry, but the I guess the resistance of the law enforcement that was there. I've seen better defense trying to ask for gravy for my oxtails at the Jamaican spot than I saw. Like, no joke. Like, they literally. You guys ever see that meme of that white guy checking people at the door at some function, and he just waving his hand around people's body and not really checking them? That's basically what happened at the Capitol building. Also, side note, Capitol with the O and A has been fucking me up all week.
Oh yeah, I know. That thing's messing with a lot of people too. Yep, 100%.
I couldn't figure out what was the right term until I looked it up, and I was like, okay, I've been saying it incorrectly for a few days and saying it correctly for the last few days. So,
I think that's the thing, dude. Oh, go ahead.
To indulge my inner conspiracy theorist for a brief moment.
Tinfoil hats on, folks.
Tinfoil hats on. Yes. Well, at this point, it's kind of been proven out that there were people, that there were A, congressmen, and B, even Capitol Police. I keep saying Capitol Hill. Thank goodness I didn't say Capitol Police. But Capitol Police who were in on this in some capacity. They haven't really figured out exactly to what extent or how, but like as far back as like, so I think Cam, you and I were talking about this the other day, how Representative Mikey Sherrill was talking about how she was in the lobby to the Capitol building and witnessed a congressman walking in people with MAGA hats. And so first off, the Capitol building is closed off, has been closed off since last March due to COVID restrictions. So that's one. Two, this person is guiding a tour of the building, which she basically came out and said, there are faces in the footage that she saw of the insurrection that were in that tour the day before. And so her military training, I think she was in the Air Force, if I'm not mistaken. She was an Air Force helicopter pilot.
Yeah.
And so she was on some, and so she was like, yo, one of the things that they train you on when you have access to secure facilities is to just note anything that's out of place, particularly people, and not just any people, but, people who are casing the joint. And she said immediately, whatever antenna she had from her training in the military immediately went up. And she was like, this is problematic. And so she heard about the threat of people coming to do whatever they were going to do. Obviously, we couldn't have imagined that it turned out to be the way it turned out. But she was so alarmed by what she saw that she told her staff to take the day off. So this wasn't something that nobody knew about. That, she forwarded her complaint. She forwarded a complaint to the sergeant at arms, and basically, it fell on deaf ears. The FBI sent in multiple, NYPD sent in multiple notifications up to the day before on some, yo, you guys might have something headed your way. All the chatter that we're hearing from the people that are on our watch lists, from the people that we're monitoring, and snitches that we got on the inside are all telling us this is about to go down. You need to shore up your whatever your security arrangements are. So the fact that this whole idea that they didn't know is absolute nonsense. It's completely false. And they've gone on a podium and stood out in front of the American people on some, oh, there's no way we could have seen this coming. This is just wild that it's happened the way it did. No, you knew it was coming. You knew it was coming, and you did nothing. And there are Capitol Police, damn it, who said, they're Capitol Police who are like, yo, I was posted somewhere I'm not usually posted, or secure, or people that are usually multiple officers who are usually posted at these points of ingress or egress, key turn points in the building weren't there. or they were retasked and rescheduled to work other places or not to work at all. There's just so much shit around that joint, yo. And I feel, again,
it's bad because
I can feel the heat from my tinfoil hat burning up as I say all of this. But this is not stuff that I've gone to seek out or gone to some weird, dark web website or whatever. These are congressmen saying all of these things. This is not, random information from, butthole number 1250 on Facebook. These are people in the know that were there that saw all of these things. I don't know, man.
Yeah. I think also too, even with the FBI, they were kind of like, yo, we knew some of this stuff, so we did a couple precautions. But like per each event that happens in DC, usually there's a briefing to, the Capitol Hill police and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Like there's like, hey, BLM's going to do a protest. Hey, there's going to be a Muslim, yada, 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 this. Hey, there's going to be this type of march. For this particular one, they had information. They talked to certain people, but they didn't do an official like, hey, guys, here's a bunch of shit that you should know prior to tomorrow's like gathering. It was like just not happen. And then on top of that, they were talking about how like, a lot of the other police officers, that was the thing that was funny to me, was all the FDNY police people from like Chicago, Portland, Seattle took the day off to go to the rally. Mm-hmm. And then on some like, yo, I'm gonna take the day off, go down to DC, do some marching. And to be fair, there were people that were just rally members. Not everybody was a rioter.
Fair, yeah. Yeah.
Not everyone's a bad person. But no, you're right though. That's what they were saying. They're like, A, it was either planned and coordinated, or B, it was the greatest failure, national security failure of all time. Or C, all of the above.
I mean, wifey AOC, shout out to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She even said in I think it was IG Live, where she was like, yo, there were congressmen that were with me. There were staffers that were with me at the extraction point when we left the Senate floor that she felt might compromise her safety because they're already QAnon members. They're already QAnon followers, believers, members. I don't know if they have like, membership cards and, coupons or whatever the hell they have. But there are QAnon members that have been elected to Congress who she felt might actually leak her location and put her in danger. The woman said that she actually had a close encounter that she can't get into yet because she's not sure if she's cleared from Capitol Security, from Capitol Police. But like, that alone speaks volumes to me that there was at least the potential for some sort of inside information being doled out.
Yeah, I was, shout out to my brothers, the twins. They constantly on Facebook battling their white Christian brothers and sisters about, just race matters all the time. And it was really funny because the responses, because they, they're still young. They still feel the need to battle with people on Facebook. And I told them I gotta let that shit go. But hey, if you want to do it, waste your time. Hey, if that's on you, that you want to do that. I usually just leave some good gifts, make it funny, and then keep it moving. But it was comedy because like every comment was like, it literally had like the QAnon adjacent talking points of like, justifiable anger. They had to show these people that the election was stolen. And it was just so funny because you could just sit back and you're just like, wow, I have like a bingo card. I'm just like checking off everyone that you're talking about. But I think the overall thing was, like, we all know this, but it was also kind of like what Cam said. You just kind of stick back and snicker, because that's why all the memes were so funny, because all the black people were like, oh, word? Y'all storming the Capitol? That's cool. Oh, no, but it looks like the police can't find their mace and their rubber bullets. That sucks.
Oh, yeah, man. Twitter was Twitter was the best place to be at during the storm. Yep. Between the Battle of Normandy, storming the beaches of but again, it was, I thought it was the greatest day in Twitter history, seeing what unfolded. I literally was laughing. It was just comedy at white people not expecting repercussions of a revolution. If there's no bloodshed in a revolution, it's not really a revolution. And some of them found out the hard way. Like if you want to, fight oppression, or being oppressed and your rights and quote unquote the battle for civil liberties, this is what happens when you really get down and dirty and really try to go against the opposition, But to me, I laughed. I smiled at the irony of white people getting maced by blue lives. Some people wanted to go meet the current president, and unfortunately, they met all 43 of the dead presidents. So
the other thing too, I learned new things. Like, did you guys know that there's bear mace? What the hell is bear mace?
Never heard of that.
Yeah,
no.
some of the, and so that was the other thing too. The reason why they were saying, part of it was people being overzealous and like quote unquote caught in the moment, but then there's other huge swaths of coordinated actions. Like people were on like walkie-talkie apps talking to people, telling people where there was. Like you were talking about that, they were saying that people knew specifically where people's offices were going to, so they were like making a beeline straight to Pelosi's office, straight to freaking AOC's place, straight to the chamber. Like,
so Clyburn has two offices. He I only know this because he was on air talking about it. But Clyburn has two offices. One that's marked with his name on it, one that absolutely does not have his name on it. They went to the one that was unmarked, and it just so happened he wasn't in there. But they went looking for him in the unmarked office that no one knows is his if you don't work there. My man. Like, you can't say this wasn't coordinated. You can't say they didn't have inside information. You can't say that they didn't recon this in some way, shape, or form. And the other thing, one other quick note is, if you like, I've seen tons and tons and tons of ex-military guys on Twitter on some, I don't know if y'all know this, but this was like a militarily coordinated offensive. This is how we breach places when we're in other countries, and we need to run up on somebody. You know what I mean? Like this is how we're taught to breach places. So this wasn't just, a bunch of, yes, there were, militiamen, Michigan militia nut jobs there, but they're also ex-military people who were coordinating this thing and sort of gathering people and gathering them up into units so that they could go point A to point B. You go this way, I go that way. We should go in waves. The first wave goes this way. The second wave comes in behind us and goes that way. This was beyond, weekend warrior type stuff, or even the true believer militia guy who's about that life. Again, this was highly coordinated. It wasn't just random dudes, who think they're, who think they're Arnold Schwarzenegger in Commando. This was the real deal.
One of the highlights was seeing somebody in Pelosi's office, and I think making beats. I don't know if it was real, but it looked like they were making
beats,
like on her computer. It looked like Fruity Loops program. It was like being loaded. But it just reminds me of the Martin stand up when he was like, "We're not gonna take it. We're just not gonna take it." That's what it looked like. That's exactly what it looked like. And the white people had their Boston Tea Party that day, and again, best day of the year. It was the most comedy and laughs I had all day. And I wasn't even mad. I just was just like, well, because it went. Look, we can have the theories and all this, but it sometimes some of that shit went ass backwards. People got clapped back and got beat on by the very people that they were supposed to be on the same side. And I posted a Spider-Man meme of like the Trump supporters, the Klan, the police, and all these people. You guys are all the same. Yeah, fight each other. So I have no sympathy for those who wanted to partake in the insurrection of the war of civil liberties and feeling like their president was unjustly removed from office. F out of
It's also kind of funny because it was like the amount of, it was almost like for them, it was like a release. Like, yes, we're finally, expressing our rage and all this stuff. And like, I know a couple of folks, they were just like, yeah, I'm surprised this shit didn't happen sooner. I mean, after that Michigan joint where they arrested those dudes that were going to kidnap the Michigan governor because they couldn't get a haircut or some shit from lockdown. I was just like, we're at that point where like these people like legit feel they're being oppressed, which is amazing and like fascinating because like you listen to them and like, wow, you have a lot of passion in your voice for being white. Just saying, like you can go home and that's the end of it. like you guys literally stormed the Capitol, then went back to the Holiday Inn and just hung out and then took a flight home.
So
yeah.
I guess the question then comes after sort of summarizing all of this. The question that rages in my brain is, what do you think is going to happen next? Aside from the very obvious, this was the first step in a larger campaign. We're recording this on Friday night, January 15th. Promise you tomorrow or Sunday or between now and inauguration, something else dumb will happen. I don't know if it's going to be on the scale of what happened last week at the Capitol building, but they're going to try to follow up on this. So that aside, because it's going to happen, people will be arrested. It will be something dumb in all likelihood. Hope, God willing, it's not anything wild. But to my question, what do you think is going to happen after all of this? What do you think the repercussions will be? How do you think this will reshape the landscape of America going forward?
Well, put it like this. This isn't the first time the Capitol building's been stormed. You know, if you do your history,
well, yeah,
the Black Panthers
took the state Capitol in
1967, and the gun laws changed, right? It even caused the NRA and Ronald Reagan to back a gun control bill authored by a Republican. It's just food for thought. Now, I was listening to a video of Kwame Ture talking about, nothing's going to change if it's just us, Black people. But when the white people start, like, ruffling feathers, then you might see, we might see something different. We don't know what that is, but usually when both parties from opposite sides go against an entity such as the government, maybe something will change. To whose benefit, I don't know. But like I said, we can recall in history and look at the irony of when the Black Panthers stormed the Capitol and could carry arms like that, and Black Lives Matter, blah, 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 go down the line to what we just saw recently. Now, to some credit, you do see these people are getting arrested. They're on the no-fly list. I think that's funny. You know what I'm saying? So they were dumb enough to bring their technology into a government building and get caught. You know, if you're going to do some dirt, leave all the things that could tie you to your identity at home. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and even like that,
that's the kicker. They don't think they're doing dirt. They think they are. They think they're
right.
patriots. They exactly. They think in their minds they are patriots liberating the country from tyranny. So
that's why we have. Sorry, go ahead. Keep going.
No, so yeah, they're documenting all of this because they don't feel like they're doing anything wrong. So there's no dirt being done in their minds.
And that's the point where I want our listener. Well, personally, I want our listeners to understand this is not privilege. This is white power, white supremacy that we're describing. It basically goes to show you that colonialism never ended, and imperialism is basically a bipartisan of white domination. They go in there thinking that nothing's going to happen to them. Privilege discourse mystifies. It does not explain or gives you an explanation, but is rather used as a catch-all to prevent any sort of deeper discussion into white supremacy as the backbone of our nation. You saw it on clear display a few days ago. These white people stormed the Capitol without giving a second thought to the repercussions that can happen. So,
yeah, and also too, I think the fact that I think what's interesting to me for just in general, I think is one. True. They arrested, I think, like 70 people. There's like 170 cases open, which is kind of weird because there's literally like 2,000 people that actually entered the building, in which every single one of those people, technically within the law, should be arrested. Like they should have just basically been arresting every person that stepped in the building technically. But yeah, but that's the part that's fascinating to me, where it's like they are doing these like, basically if you were in a viral photo or a video, you've been arrested. But like to me, I mean, there was a good video with I shouldn't even say good, but there's a video with them in the rotunda, and there's about 20 officers there, and there's about 30 to 50 other like quote unquote rioters, and like every one of those dudes should be arrested, like every single one. And I'm laughing because I'm like, wow, like the white power stuff is so insidious that they sat there and were like, let me chill and just yell at them and tell them to push back, as opposed to just arresting all of them. And there was a good interview with a police officer that was, I think he was, he was like kind of pushing back. I think they pulled his shield off or something like that. And he was just like, yeah, I was, confronting the rioters. I was pushing them back, and I was like, I was gonna use my gun, but they had guns too, and I realized if I used my gun, then everyone would start shooting. And I was like, huh. So you just stated prior to that statement that you thought you were going to die, but you still didn't pull your gun when you had other people in front of you that were threatening your life, spitting, mace, had their own guns. Yet, as we all, we're black people, we've been saying this over and over again, homie with the freaking Snapple in his hand or Starburst or freaking cell phone is already an imminent threat. So it goes back to that white power aspect of it, where like they don't see white people rioting or even being aggressive as an actual threat. And then when they actually are a threat, they're like, oh, wow, you're a threat. Well, this is weird. Yep. But yeah, it was, like I said, man, it was super, super. And then for me, it was even more with, my girl's dad, he's a big Trump dude. He voted for him, phone banked and all that. And so, unfortunately, I haven't been able to talk to him since. He's supposed to come over, but he ended up not coming over. But I was curious about everyone else because, people are starting to say, oh, these are the fringe folks. But I'm like, yo, you guys are all kind of lumped together like you guys lump all the black people together. So I'm like, how do you even justify, any of this? And a lot of it was just like, well, they have justifiable anger because they feel like the election was stolen. I was like, fuck your feelings. Like, what that got to do with anything? But yeah, it's, like I say, it's an interesting, and I was laughing because a couple of my friends, they teach high school. They're talking to their kids, sophomore or juniors. And so they're in California. And they're young. And so they're kind of like, yeah, it was weird to see that because they don't feel that kind of anger in their, California suburbs, like more liberal or it's multicultural, that situation. And so my friend as a teacher was like, yeah, but in other parts of the country and other states, it's completely different mentality. So that kind of showed you a small piece of that mentality. And so they had this whole kind of roundtable discussion about it, which I thought was like super interesting. But, yeah, it was weird because on one point for black people, we felt vindicated, like, see? And then the other thing, we're like, ain't nothing going to happen.
Yeah.
So you don't see any major consequences or any changes coming in the post insurrection world?
Honestly, if something happens on that level from now until inauguration, maybe. But I think in the big grand scheme of things, I think there'll be a little bit more like over the last 2 to 3 years, white terrorist groups, yada, 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 have been getting, they're starting to at least like put them on hey, these people are of note.
Insurgents.
Yeah, insurgents. So I'm really curious to see, all these militia, because like, I don't, in the last 4 years, militia groups have exploded. Like they're like tripled in size or something like that. And like all over the United States. And so, and when one of my former military homies was telling me, he's like, oh yeah, he's like all those militia groups, like the top brass are all former military, current police officers, all that. So he was like, that's why he wasn't surprised by like how they were moving in the Capitol. So I think it's going to be interesting because now the government has to really put their money where their mouth is in terms of like saying, are these really white terrorists / insurgents, or is it just like, a few bad actors, quote unquote? So I'm curious, like if the inauguration goes off with a hitch, I don't really see much change happening. If something happens during the inauguration, whether it's a skirmish, whether it's something like that, because the 50 states all over the place are supposed to be having certain things. Like I don't think the inauguration is going to happen, but I think at other state capitals around the country, stuff could happen. And then I can see it if that happens, like, pops off or whatever, then I can see like more something actually changing. But in general, I don't know, man. We're as black people, we're pretty much skeptical when it comes to this type of shit.
This is true. From what I read, there's stuff planned for the weekend as well as inauguration day. But I mean, they're rolling like I think they pulled up with like 20,000 National Guard for inauguration. So I don't think they're going to be dumb enough to try to do anything. The memorial's been shut down. Like the everything leading up to the White House and you can't even get within sniffing distance of the White House. But what's interesting is also that the mayor of DC had to be on. It was. I don't know if you guys remember or saw any of this. There was this whole thing about the chain of command and whether or not they could mobilize the National Guard. And largely it was due to the fact that the governor pretty much saw what was he was in a meeting. He says he was giving a press conference. He was in a meeting and he got pulled out of the meeting because of what was going on, turned on the TV, looked at it for about 5 seconds. It was like, mobilize the National Guard. We should get the call any minute. We need to have them ready to go, and we need to send them in to cross the border into DC to send them in. We need to get police, just, the usual, whatever the worst case scenario is for whatever this thing is that they have planned. There's a plan in place, but he can't send in their National Guard in the DMV area. He can't send in the National Guard until he gets the word from the Secretary of Defense, I believe it is. Someone in the cabinet.
It's the secretary. Yeah, it's basically it's the mayor. It's the mayor. She's a black woman. She can request the National Guard, but it has to be the president, the vice president, or the Secretary of Defense that approves it. So when this shit started going down, they were like, yo, folks are storming the Capitol. And then president was like, huh? Put on silent. And then and then Pence was running with his family because Secret Service, I didn't realize it until a couple of days later, the place where the Pence was holed up, he was right near the crowd that was saying hang Pence, hang Pence, hang Pence, which is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But it was Pence that actually approved the National Guard to come in but that's not until 6 hours later.
Some craziness like that.
Yeah. So like I said, it's one of those things where, as people were talking about like I was talking about that officer, they're saying how people were putting in their comments, but they're like, yeah, the officers were letting people in. They were kind of just like, oh, these are my people. Like, oh, you can come in. That's all good. And I think that's the aspect of it too, where it's like at the highest levels, people were like, oh, this is a bad thing. We need to do something. And then, the White House is silent. Pence is silent because Pence is not anywhere we can actually make a decision. And then everyone else is like literally just watching this on TV. So it was such an interesting situation where like you saw in real time where the priorities lie. And like, we haven't really talked about freaking Trumpito and his dumbness, which we don't really need to, but it just showed like the levels of just like, oh, well, white people are storming the Capitol. That's cool. I don't think nothing's going to happen too bad.
Hey, look, when I saw them taking selfies, I thought they were about to swap jerseys at the end of the match.
Seriously, 100%. 100%. Like, yo, when I saw that picture of the video of one of the Capitol Hill police helping a rioter down the stairs, like, oh, here you go, ma'am. Hold on. Are you okay? Okay, cool.
To be clear, helping them down the stairs out of the building away from the scene of the crime after the crime has been committed.
Yep. They didn't. The thing is, they didn't even arrest people. When people were dying, or like when the woman got shot in the chest or the neck, I think it was, and then there's other stuff. But like people that were in the actual Capitol, like they didn't arrest anybody. I think there's only maybe like 2 or 3 arrests actually within the Capitol. Other than that, they were just like, "Yo, you guys need to leave," and like they literally was like, "Oh, we got to leave now." All right, and then everyone just walked out. So in my head, I was like, "So you let 2,000 people roll up in your house to face property, mess up all this shit, and then you're like, all right, you guys need to go," and then they left, and that was it?
We're not gonna take it.
For real. And that's why it was so funny, because it was like, yeah, you're right. Yeah, we all know this. If it was black people, this would have been a lot of dead niggas.
It would have been a massacre.
Yo, it would have freaking arrest ties and lined them up, hands behind your head, the whole nine.
Nah, you formalizing it way too much. It wouldn't have even gotten that far. They would have made it to the steps. Somebody would have been on some. If they made it to that far, they'd have made it to the steps and a firing line. That's what I envision in my head when I think black people pulling the same kind of crap.
I don't even think the bill from Schoolhouse Rocks made it up the steps.
You know what I'm saying?
Like, seriously, you got packed up so fast.
So, and like it was one of those things where you couldn't, like, we were like joking about it, but it's like even like beyond true, because because again, like you said, Twitter was the best because they had all the good memes. But when they had that one meme where it was like, the National Guard during BLM, and it was like literally lines of them just chilling. And then it showed, then it was like, on January 6th, it was like Paul Blart, male cop, just kind of
Pretty much,
just
bro.
like, yo, man, it's such a, but I think going back to the question of, do you think anything's going to change? I think the one change that actually will be is, I think a lot of the militias and all that, there's going to be at least a little bit more attention to them in terms of like overall. But I'm not sure if there's any like, is there going to be like wholesale like shutting down, like, they destroyed the Black Panther like movement, like killed all the heads, jailed them. That shit was done. I don't see that happening to these like white terror groups that kind of just popping up now.
Not even close.
Yeah, like some of them, they were talking about how the FBI gave gentle warnings to some of these militiamen. Like, yo, we heard there's going to be something going down on January 6th. You better stay home.
Don't you do that. Don't you do it. You leave that alone.
They didn't. Yep, they didn't arrest them. They didn't do anything. They just did a knock on. It's like, yo, we know what's going down. You should stay home. Like that kind of shit. Like I don't see a hardcore change in how they approach white militia groups. Like, and that's why it's interesting, because now we can kind of go back to the whole impeachment thing. And it was interesting because like, a lot of people are like, oh, why should you impeach them? Da, 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 da. And so in my head, I'm like, well, if the president of the United States incites an actual riot that actually storms the Capitol and puts the lives of the Congress in general, like there should be some type of consequences, I would hope. And the funny part to me was, I think in general, was all the Congress people that after the shit was over and then they cleared everyone out, they went back into session and they went back, they did their same talking points, like nothing happened. Like you guys were just cowering in fear under your desk from people that said you should do something, and now you're actually doing exactly what they asked. Like that's insane to me. Like you act like nothing happened. They're like, hey, whew, that was crazy, guys. So anyways, I don't think the election was real. I don't see we should certify this. Like
you should see my face right now.
It was awesome. And again, it's just the audacity of white people never ceases to me. Like it's crazy. Like it's so interesting to see it. Like
well, those guys.
There is no.
God, sorry.
Well, I was talking about like in terms of politics wise, McConnell is actually worse in terms of everyone, because what people don't realize is like, he's the one that from a procedural situation controls the flow of the Senate, what comes out to the bills, blah, 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 blah. But what people don't realize is like a lot of these senators that have the powers in terms of the Congress, like they're in these very protected states of constituents. So there really is no consequences to their actions. And so like right now you're starting to see a little bit like, people feel like a lot of these senators are traitors. Like Lindsey Graham got accosted at the Ronald Reagan airport. Mad Trump supporters are like yelling at him and calling him a traitor and a coward and blah, blah, blah. And certain senators that voted to impeach him are getting death threats and all that kind of shit. But like in general, most of these senators, there's really, and House reps, there's really no consequences for their actions in terms of what they do. Like they do something dumb on the Hill or say something racist, like their constituents still, vote them back into office because like they live in a lily white neighborhood in Kentucky or some shit like that. So it's like, it's always interesting when you see the actual politics of it compared with the actual morality of it.
Very interesting. Go ahead.
It's interesting. It's just not surprising. But yeah. I mean, if anything, the surprising bit was people like Lindsey Graham coming to the floor on some, all right, white flag. Yeah, fine. Just ratify the election already and let's get it over with. Like that to me was like, oh, now you think it's too much. Now you think it's gone too far. Now it's just a little too much for you, and too rich for your blood, and you're crying, and you're crying surrender. Now it takes that. That's the thing that I think is the most galling, less surprising, more galling to me.
Yeah, and it's all the companies that are like, oh no, this is what, Trump's gone too far. We gotta pull back. We gotta pull back all of our. We can't give them. Nope, this is not good.
Nope, this is how far it has to go. This is how far it has to go before it's gone. Before they've gone too far.
Well, when all these people have their holier than thou moment and try to come full circle after Trump has finally been outed as the person we all knew he was, we also as a people have to still hold those people that were negligent and realizing this in hindsight, accountable. Like,
Yeah.
oh no, you don't get off as easy either. Like,
Yeah.
you are part of the problem. You're
Yeah,
finding bullshit.
and I think that's the part that is this next term of terms of Congress, president, all that kind of stuff. That's going to be the most interesting to me because it's not necessarily Biden's in it. There's a Congress and they have all the House and all that kind of stuff, but it's more about like where that's going to be. Like, say for instance, like a Bernie Sanders. Bernie been talking the same Bernie shit for 40 years. He's actually now in a position of power that he can actually do something. So let's see, and he was just like, yo, I'm about to go balls to the wall and fucking just go all the way in and see what the fuck happens. And honestly, I'm curious to see what he actually can get through and what he can't. But I at least appreciate him saying that up front. Like, no, now I actually have the power to do the shit that I've been trying to say for the last 40 years. I'm going to try to go as far as I can and then figure out see what happens. The other aspects of it that's going to be interesting too is, again, that consequences, like, Cruz and Hawley and all these other dumbasses that were out here yelling like, inciting the riot and trying to make these people feel, good about themselves. Like, is there going to be any repercussions for them? Because they're up for election again in 2 years. So we'll really see, and the same thing with Biden. Biden is a middle of the road, normal, boring ass white dude that's getting pulled like more and more to the left because he's in the moment of that. So I'm curious to see how far he's going to go until he, goes back to his normal ass, more middle of the road, milky white dude situation. So it's going to be.
I've already done it. Like,
it's going to be. The reason why I say that is because he has. It's not even about him. I'm more. I think Trump was the best thing to happen to the nation in terms of people understanding basic civics and politics. So now people started to see what's an actual law and then what's just a norm, right? So Trump is genius in the fact that like he blew through all those norms because he was like, oh wait, that's not a law. Pfft, I ain't following that shit. And then it'll be interesting to see now with that as the precedent, what happens now, right? So I'm curious to see where, especially with the Congress and all that, like you essentially have from January 20th, they have about, I want to say 180 days to do literally whatever the fuck they want. But after that 180 days, then it turns into, oh shit, I got to get reelected. And then, that once that little marker ends, that's when it goes back to reelection. And then, folks will be like, oh, you guys are being too socialist. We got to vote half them out. And then, the pendulum will switch. So the next 180 days from January 20th is going to be super duper interesting. Because if they're going to do anything, like just doesn't matter what it is, whatever pie in the sky thing is, it would be within that little space. And if they do some shit, they could actually do some wild shit. But if they don't, then it's pretty much going to be the same for, most Americans.
I too am very curious to see what happens to the likes of the Ted Cruzes and Josh Hawleys of the world, who, I mean, it's obvious that they're making a play for and hitching their wagons to that wing of the party because they have plans for later on down the line. Like Matt Gaetz Matt Gaetz might as well just put up a white power symbol and wear his Ku Klux Klan hood into the halls of Congress, because that dude does not hide who he is and what he's about at all. He is for whichever way the Republican Party is headed, no matter how crazy, no matter how right wing, no matter how wingnut it gets. And so he's clearly making a play to be a player long term. Same thing for Josh Hawley. So they're not going to do anything to damage their standing. And if that means hitching their wagon to some of these nut jobs that attempted a legit insurrection of the U.S. government, then so be it. If that's where the party's going, that's where I'm going, because that's where the money's at. Figuratively speaking, I think they're after more than just dollars and cents. I think they're after power. I think they're after securing their power base and being able to do whatever their end game is, which in all likelihood is at least making a run at the big chair to try to become president. That is super obvious.
Yeah, man. It's they're all same sides of the all same
different sides of the same coin.
Yeah, depending on what people are going to see now with this pendulum switching over to quote unquote Biden as opposed to Trump is now classism is going to be a little bit more front and center of where things go. So it'll be really, really interesting to see how that rolls when it just comes down to taxes, basic services, shit like that. So, and again, we still live in a capitalist paradigm. So that's take that as you will. So there's really little incentive for to quote unquote help your fellow man when in capitalism. Like what was it? Someone was talking about the minimum wage, right? Minimum wage has been raised and blah 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 blah. So they're like, hey, we should raise it to $15 an hour. $15 an hour is $31,000 a year. People are like, nah, I don't think that's cool.
Well, also people have been railing for trying to get the minimum wage raised to $15 an hour for about 10 to 15 years. So when that was first,
should be like 23.
when that was first proposed, that was great money for back then. Now they're like, oh yeah, sure, we'll totally raise it, but the cost of living has gone up by like 1,200% between now and then. So it's really just raising it to where it was before, but accounting for inflation. So what are you really doing? So hopefully, like you say, the Bernie Sanders of the world, who I think is more uniquely positioned in hindsight, being a former Bernie supporter. I think he's uniquely positioned to do more and get more done in the position that he's going to be in the Biden administration than he ever could have been as actual president. He can propose whatever he wants, and he can try to get the speaker to whip votes and all this other jazz, but Bernie's kind of the guy. He's the guy who's going to be in the thick of it and the one enacting most of that stuff. So he'll be able to win votes, and whatever other bluster everybody speaks in terms of the progressive movement, the progressive arm of the Democratic Party. At the end of the day, he's about that life, and he's connected enough on the Hill to be able to make some of those things happen, whether people recognize that or not.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting, man. Like I said, it pulling back and seeing where everything lands. People are talking about Biden's speeches and shit like that. Like, yo, man, he's mad boring and blah blah blah. I'm like, yeah, that's how.
For the love of God, thank you.
Y'all already know how I feel, man. I just hope y'all get y'all 2,000 checks that y'all was promised, because that $1,400 plus the $600 is a lie. He said 2,000 after the 600 came out, so y'all supposed to get 2,000 on top of that 600. Now they so I don't understand why they lie like that. So it's just funny.
Well, I think also too, it to me it goes back to even with COVID and all that shit. Like, it was funny to see, like shout out to our homie Phil. He's out in London, and he had gotten furloughed. And so in London, when people that were unemployed and furloughed, they were given 80% of their former pay for the duration of 6 months. And this is like right when COVID hit, like March. So if you're unemployed or you're furloughed, that's what you're getting. You're getting 80% of your pay. Then I think after 5 months, they extended that to like another 5 months. So here that is like almost 11 months of, you don't have a job, but you're getting a good amount of your pay doing that. Where, here we had in America, quote unquote, greatest company in the world. And they're like, yo, take this 1,200 and, we'll help you a little bit with your unemployment.
And we'll see you in 6 months.
Keep it moving. Yeah, exactly. And even that 2,000, like, yeah. So 2,000 plus the 1,200 before, that's 3,200 theoretically, but 3,200 over what 9, 10, almost 11 months, where like literally every other developed nation after us, like even the top 10 have like, we're helping, their citizens out, monthly for X amount of time, whatever the money case would be. So it was just interesting that the colors that, like, we all know this, but to see it happen in real time, where it was kind of like, am I my brother's keeper in general? And America's like, not really. Like, we kind of care, but not enough to like help you. And even that, like you said, even that monthly, that check, that 2,000 check, that's only going to a certain percentage of the populace. If you test out, like, my girl's a doctor, she makes X amount of money, she's not getting that. And there's people that are making between that 70, I think 70 and up, or almost 80K and up, and they're not getting that. So it's like, it's just an interesting thing where there's easy things to hang your hat on. I was like, yo, we need to, ramp up COVID production, vaccine production, and we got to give people checks in their pockets and blah, blah, blah. That definitely helps people. It's not saying it doesn't, but it's such an interesting thing where it's like, in America, we really, really, that symbolism and that slogan is way more important than the actual help of the common person.
Well, also, the system is not designed to really do that and to really help people. And Cam, you say this all the time. Americans are not geared toward helping each other. Like you might be in a dope position. Cam might be clearing, let's say, $100,000 a year, so his life is relatively comfortable. I might be unemployed, or I might be, impoverished. And so Cam having to pay more in taxes so that I can get whatever services I need. And again, keeping in mind that this is a unique situation because outside of here in the UK, most places don't have the level of public public services that we have here in America. But that notwithstanding, uh Cam is not, in other countries, Cam making what he makes, he's not going to bitch about having to pay extra taxes because he knows that if the situation reverses and he needs those services, he's already paid into the system and other people are paying into the system so that he can reap those benefits. We don't operate that way. We don't think that way. Then capitalism on its own is a whole other ball of wax, because just our economic system in general, it seems to be geared, even more so than before. We're tossing billions of dollars at corporations, but we're balking at giving $600 a month. I mean, $600 per week to people who aren't working, who've been legit destabilized by all of this. Nah, son. Like, and it's funny because my mom is very much, she's not a Republican by any stretch of the imagination. She's actually very, very much left leaning, but as an immigrant who's come here and made a life for herself, and she also is of the mind of like, yo, pull yourself up by your bootstraps if as the opportunities are available. And so $600 a week seems a little excessive to be just doling out to people who aren't going to necessarily do anything with it. I understand, and so of course, being her son, I understand where her head is at, and I understand her thinking behind that. And it's just interesting to notice the dichotomy in terms of like, yeah, people, like, the cost of living isn't what it was, and so $600 on top of your unemployment isn't necessarily doing as much as you may think it does, but it's better than the nothing that people were getting before, or the $1,200 that people got and then nothing else after that.
No, it's true, man. It's just
I'm just going through some tweets, and I was just looking at that one tweet. On the day of the insurrection, Joe Biden said, "America is so much better than what we're seeing today." And I said, if that ain't the oldest lie I ever heard, come on now, bro. You're already lying. You ain't even taken office yet.
Well,
like, people are I've never seen anything like this. I'm like, really?
As the president elect, he has he's got to toe the line, even if he doesn't believe that, and B, yeah, CA, like there's no B to that. It'd be weird if he didn't say that.
Put it like this. He also put out a tweet, even the same day. Let me be clear. The scenes of chaos at the Capitol do not represent who we are. What we are seeing is a small number of extremists dedicated to lawlessness. This is not dissonant. It's disorder. It borders on sedation, and it must end now. No, brother. That's who they are. This is not nothing new. Like, we see this on a day-to-day basis. Don't come out here acting like this is a small number. This is a majority of America.
I think it's interesting to me because, like, like everyone keeps trying to say, like, oh, no, we gotta unify. There's 75 million people that voted for Trump that aren't racist and blah 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 and yada yada yada. And it's so comedy because it's interesting that we're supposed to, quote unquote, be nice or have a kind word for the people that have voted for or tolerated this type of that situation. Like we're over here, be like, yo, this country's racist, and they're like, I mean, it's not racist for everybody. I mean, you went to a good college, like I, I legit. That was one of my brother's Christian friends. That's what they said. They're like, Ian and Brandon, you guys, grew up in Milpitas, California. You guys went to college. You guys are blah 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 blah. And it was so funny because this guy was legit that's for him to acknowledge that there's some type of a white privilege would shatter his version of how he looks at the United States in the world. And a lot of people, especially white people in America, look at the United States, they don't. I'm not saying they don't realize it. They realize it, and they're either A, actively, like we know this, B, willfully ignorant. But when you challenge that the America that they're living in is different than other people's, it almost breaks their brain, which is comedy to me because I don't give them a pass for it. I'm like, no. We just live in different Americas. We live in a certain one and you live in a different one. But for them to acknowledge that basically acknowledges the white privilege and everything else. So it's like, I think those aspects of it's like being a politician where you're representing everyone. And I'm more curious for me is all the black politicians. Like there was 2 or 3 black Republicans in the Congress that voted to to overturn the election or whatever. And I'm like, okay, you guys are from the South. And I know there is differences in terms of liberal California, liberal New York, but there's still basic morals that you're like, no, that's wrong. That kind of aspect of it, right? So it's just like say, it's such an interesting aspect of how people look at things. And being a politician, where do you toe that line of being, keeping it 100% or 100 at all times to keeping it like 65%? Because that's the real thing too. And also too, being president of the United States is interesting to me because you have to represent everyone, right? So if 13% of the population is actively being discriminated against, then you got that 2% of Native Americans that are still alive that everyone likes to forget about. Then you got the silent majority of the Asian kids that are, making a killing in terms of money and everything else, and are now slowly but surely becoming more and more Republican and conservative. So it's very interesting to toe all those lines and still try to be able to, lead quote unquote the country. But yeah, and like as I said, I digress.
No, you ain't digressing. You teaching facts, bro.
But it's also it's like not everyone to be in politics means you have to toe the line. So I think it's more sad that there's like I said, when people talk about like say for instance and whatever about both Biden and Kamala, but I always look at more of the Congress, and it's really interesting to see the different motivations for it, right? So if I'm a black man in America, I've gone through all the stuff that's happening to me and all that kind of stuff, and now I'm representing if I was a representative of my neighborhood right now, it's mostly Latino and white. So I have to balance the racism shit that happens to me, the racist shit that happens to the Latinos here, all the white people that are all Trump supporters, and then still balance all that with their voice into the Congress. And so I can see how that could be kind of weird.
Well, the thing that jumps out at me, especially the bit about what you were saying with Brandon and Ian, is I think that there's, again, that cognitive dissonance where conservatives don't like it. It's more than there's a belief in the system. There's a belief in the rightness of the system. There's a belief in everything that the system stands for. And again, because their entire world is supported by this. It's propped up by this. Everything that you believe is sort of 360-degree supported by all of those things. And then for someone to have a different experience is just mind-boggling. Like, how do you not, and I'm sure we're all looking at each other going, how do you not see what I see? And I think there's and in that, on the conservative side, lies an unwillingness to be able to look at the next man and realize that they have a very different experience from you because of extenuating circumstances. They don't, at its core, black people look at people who operate that way like, what is wrong with you? How are we sitting here having watched me have to have to be a victim of police brutality, to be a victim of racism, to be a victim of discrimination. I sit here saying it's this, and you say it's that. I'm the one who had the experience. You want to color it as something else. I don't understand how you can see it any other way. And they're like, oh, well, you're just upset because it's like, fam. Well, like I'm the one who experienced it. You don't get, and I feel like that is a very exclusively American thing. That shout out to my peoples in Canada. I feel like my friends in Montreal have gotten me out of, where you have to think a little bit more globally. You have to think a little bit more. What's the impact that this person, that what you're saying, what you're saying, what you're thinking, what you're doing, what's the impact going to be on the next person? You need to think about that before you open your mouth. You need to think about that before you dismiss someone's experience. And that is something that is uniquely American. We're so isolated and inculcated into our own way of thinking, and the belief that that this is the only world, that this is the only section of the world that exists. This is the center of the universe and everything orbits around it. A friend of mine went to London with a homie of his, and the first thing they did, they dropped their stuff at the hotel. They went walking around, and the first thing out of that idiot's mouth was, "Look at all the foreigners." That is the most American thing I've ever heard and seen in my entire life. And my boy had to smack him in the back of the head, like, "Son, what do you like? Did you hear what you just said?" But that is emblematic of exactly the way the entire country thinks.
And then to Cam's point, Biden saying that, that typical freaking, this is not who we are, to the commentators that were like, no, that this is actually who we are. This is all this shit. Yep, this makes perfect sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like I give them way more credit than him on that point of just bringing that aspect of it up. So I think it's very interesting, because for every one person that is Cam saying, yo, we know who we are, we've been doing this shit, this is always like this, there's literally another 100 people that are like, oh my God, I can't believe this is who we are.
I give them no credit, because these are the same assholes that were on some when Obama got elected. We're in post-racial America, so no, they don't get zero props.
Yeah, no, not props. But again, this goes back to where like there are way more ignorant people that would go with that statement than there are on our end, like saying, bitches, this is how it's always been. And that's the problem, I think, in general.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and part of that's ignorance, part of that's straight up naivete, but most of it is deliberate. And I think that's that aspect. Like, I was laughing when someone was telling me about, I said, Trump is racist, Trump supporters are racist or something. And then a girl I know was like, yo, I voted for Trump. You think I'm a racist? I'm like, yo, what I said was, not all Trump supporters are racist, but all racists are Trump supporters. So you might need to look at yourself and figure out if you're on the right side of history.
Yeah, I'm not along with people that voted for Trump. I'm cool.
Yeah, and there you go. And so it was comedy because what was it? Oh, there was, because Parler got cut, but
why?
So, but the funniest part is, one, that shit was mad unstable. Like someone copied their whole freaking database. Yeah, released that shit online. But one dude was like, he was like, I lost family members, I lost friends, and you mean to tell me it was all for nothing?
You know what's funny? Somebody was like, Parler app's not working. It was like, if you delete it and reinstall it, it would come back. No, fool. Once it's gone. And another person I knew was like, information.
like, yo. Or the other one, what was the one? They're like, oh no, it was a congresswoman. She was like, hey, they're probably going to silence us. So drop your name, your email, and your address, and I'll put you on my list. Yes. And then like 600 people freaking responded that with their personal information. Like, what the fuck? You guys are dummies. But again, there are way more dummies than there are people. I think that's the part that is talking to my girl's dad and him honestly asking me questions about my interactions with the police. It was fascinating because I'm like, I'm looking at his face. Is he joking? Is he just, and like, he was like legit asking certain questions. And I was like, so you don't have any concept of black people and their interaction with police outside of watching TV or anything like that. And it kind of reminded me again that, like, yeah, white people are either willfully ignorant, deliberately ignorant, or naive, or all three.
Mm-hmm.
And so for us, and one of my friends actually brought this up, he was like, for us as black people, we need to share these stories with white people more on our own accord, how you ever feel it. But a lot of times, because we don't tell white people these types of stories, they just assume that it doesn't exist. And that's them being, us assuming that they are nice people, not all nice, but like I said, some of them are deliberately racist or whatever. But I think we don't necessarily go out and tell all of our white friends like, oh yeah, I got accosted by the police last night, and the freaking did this to me, da 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 da, blah 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 blah. So that aspect of it is always interesting to me because, like, yeah, again, we still live in the United States where there's way more white people than there are black people. And a lot of them don't interact with any minorities unless it's like food service or like vacation.
Exactly.
What I found is, for what you're saying, I feel like the only time that white people get our experience is when it impacts someone not someone they know personally. It's got to be more than that. It's got to be a loved one. It's got to be somebody with a white woman with a black husband, or a white man with a black wife, or interracial relationship that has kids who are at least outward facing, at least a little bit black, that appear to be black. And that's when they get it, when their kid is the one. I forget the guy's name on ESPN who said his son got rousted by some cops. And I was like, yo, I feel bad for your son. I don't feel bad for you, because it took your kid being in jeopardy, and you realize, and you putting together for the first time in your life, having to put together the math of cops and black kid equals he might die. And that's what we walk with every single day. For anybody listening to this, black people of all stripes walk with that every single day. And it took that man's child being in jeopardy for him to, for the first time, to put together, cop pulling my kid aside, he's not doing anything, this might be the last time that I talk to him. And that is the thing that people need to get through their heads.
But it's also that's COVID, that's racism, that's police brutality, that's poverty. Like, unless it happens to you or someone 1 degree away from you, you're kind of just like, oh, that's just TV shit. Oh, that sucks.
And that is the fatal flaw of America in a nutshell.
Oh, that people are unemployed, man, that's whack. Until it happens to you specifically or one person away, most people look at it like TV. Like, my girl's going through that with a lot of the COVID shit. So it's insidious, but it happens in literally all of the aspects of it. And that's why, like Cam was saying, when you hear the politicians like, oh my God, this isn't who we are, and then all of us are like, what are you talking about? It's been like this for 400 years.
Everybody plays the fool.
Yeah. And I think what's even more is knowing all of that and then still trying to go into politics to affect change is interesting to me. On those levels, like, people that generally are going into politics with that, like, I want to affect change. And most, a lot of them were there for the power and whatever, but there's like people that are generally like, I feel like I want to go into politics to, affect change or help my community, or those aspects of it, whether it's on a city level, whether it's on, city council, school board, or all that. Like, knowing all those things, people still, get into politics or get into governing to figure out ways to help other folks. And then the other ones are just assholes and they just want to get power. But it really interesting knowing all that, especially as a minority, especially as a black person, going into members of Congress, like Cori Bush and her situation. She was like, yo, we're dealing with white supremacy and blah, 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 blah. And Congress actually booing her. And then another white congressman said the same thing, ain't nobody boo her. And the white congresswoman was like, yo, Cori Bush said the exact same that I did, and she got booed. It's like, I said white supremacy is not, should not be tolerated, and no one said anything. She's like, that's racism right there. And so, yeah, like I said, it is really interesting that knowing all the stuff that we know and what we see, and you still want to go into politics to affect change. Hey, that's I don't think there's anything more American than that. But we've been ranting for quite some time about this dumbness of America. We apologize. It's first show back. Is what we do. But we'll end it up on a quasi happy note. We'll do final words, and guys, let's give me something positive that you're doing or you're watching or you're seeing that is actually a good thing, just so we can end it on something light and happy. Josh, you want to go first?
Wow, something positive and light and happy. Yo, I gotta tell you, I gotta reach for that. I mean, I'm alive, I'm functional. You know what I mean? Family's good, and I feel like that feels trite. You know what I mean? Like those are things that you should expect to be okay, and you don't want to take those things. And I don't say that because I take those things for granted, but I feel like there should in the middle of all that's going on, you should be able to reach for more than that. But I mean, I guess when things are as batshit crazy as they become, you reach for the basics. So that's kind of where I land. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not dead. And I feel like, I mean, there's always light at the end of the tunnel. It's just really difficult to see right this second, to be 100% honest. But I am certain that there is. I'm sure that that things will improve. They will get better. Yeah, I'm gonna end off there.
All right, Cam, what's your final words?
Two things. If you ever watched the movie Tenet, put on your subtitles. It's confusing as hell.
That's not a positive. That's actually a negative against the movie that you need to put it on.
Second of all, I had a dream of a burrito. The next morning I got a burrito. So to all my followers, follow your dreams. That's it.
Hey man, it's a little thing. It's a little simple thing. It's a little simple thing. That's all you need.
Follow your dream.
As aforementioned, I had a birthday last week, and
sorry. Positive,
hey man,
get right.
Positive vibes, bro.
That was good. Good.
So I had a birthday last week. I turned 41 years young or old, middle age, as I was saying, which is hilarious. But the thing that was cool was I write a letter to myself every year for myself to read it a year later, and it's always kind of like a recap of like fam, friends, work, that kind of situations. And it's always interesting because it kind of gives me a good gist of like where my mindset is and where my head was at that time. So I read Dear Cam 2020, which was pretty hilarious because I didn't know any of this COVID shit was happening. But yeah, I've been doing it now since 1998 every year, and it's always refreshing and kind of gives me a good reflection of like the whole like the year before it, kind of a gist of it and where I want to go, and always put in like a couple things that I'm like looking forward to or I want to do or those things, and sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't, but it's something that it's kind of a tradition I started back then. I've been keeping with it, and so I encourage everyone else to kind of find a tradition that's uniquely your own and not like some generic tradition that everyone does, like something that's just something small. It doesn't have to be anything crazy, but creating your own traditions is actually a really good thing to start with, either you or with your fam or with your girl or with your partner. And I encourage everybody to find a tradition they like to do once a year. Just do it just for you. Don't got to be for nobody else, because no one else reads this shit but me, and it's always interesting. And so I'll go back and read Dear Cam, like 2005 or something like that, just to kind of see what it was, and it was always super interesting. So yeah, man, find some traditions. Things they're important.
Also, we're on a grind to learn Spanish. Finally.
Yes, I'm on my Duolingo. I am on streak day 37 right now. So I'm gonna try to. I'm committed. Cam got me back onto it, so I'm gonna be committed. I'm gonna try to do my Spanish Duolingo every day. So maybe I can get just. I'm trying to do it as one as consistency, but then two, I've been wanting. I took Spanish back in high school, but I never really do it. But I definitely wanted just to kind of get my second language grind on. So I'm on it.
I'm gonna put you on the spot. You talking all this trash about having done it for 30 days. You need to spit some Spanish right now.
Sí, señor. Sí.
I'm gonna punch you next time I see you. That was just the weakest. I'm
got you.
mad I even suggested it because if I'd have thought about it for a split second, I knew you were going to do that.
I'd have been like, un bocadillo de pollo, por favor.
Thank you.
Con leche.
Thank you, Cam. Thank you.
All I said was I want to order a chicken sandwich.
Whatever, yo. It's a sentence, and you knew what you were going to say before you said it, and and you were able to translate it after the fact.
Cam, I'm going to test you. How do you say bathroom in Spanish?
El baño.
There you go. How do you order a table?
Mi novia es muy interesante.
So,
Thank you.
There you go.
Nah, I know what it is right now. I do know my Spanish. I just got it better. I want to use it more in terms of that. So we'll do a Spanish session every episode or something.
Yeah, maybe we'll do an intro in Spanish and then go to English.
I know, that should be hilarious. I want to start to do my homework now. I'm like, okay, say welcome everybody. Okay, gotta do that in Spanish. Man,
that's how you say welcome.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna practice. That's, you know what? Next episode, I'm doing the intro in Spanish, people.
Yes.
All right, next. There we go.
It's on the record. We're gonna by the next time we do another episode, I'll be in more. So yep. So I shall pledge it. Doing next intro, I'm doing it in Spanish.
Salute.
This ought to be interesting.
Right. Yes, sirs. Yeah, man. Other than that, tell the truth, and we out.
Peace. Don't storm any other government buildings.
Wear your mask. Stay in. Don't get COVID. That shit sucks.
And wash your hands, you nasty bastards.
If you're not trying to be the patriots of the first states, then don't go to the Capitol building.